We build the business based off the life we want, not the life around the business we want. Journaling has been a really cool thing for me because I have a lot of thoughts, but I didn't have a good way to synthesize it and put it out there. You start looking back at your journals from 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It's funny the things that we were like so worried about. And then you go back at it and be like, oh, man, this all worked out. Every morning reading what your life looks like. What does your bio say? Imagine giving yourself a eulogy, almost. What would people say about you? What do you want your legacy to be? What does your day look like? If you had to design the most perfect day and go through it with crystal clarity, you design the life you want first, and then we build it. And everything that you've gotten in your life, at some point, you designed it. Everyone's had that feeling of, man, I did this. And it's crazy because a year ago, I was saying I was going to do this. But yeah, you created it and you did it. We think one thing has to be sacrificed, but we don't. We build the business based off the life we want, not the life around the business we want. So I think that's a very important distinction. And I think everyone, if they design what they want their life to look like, and then say, cool, how do I build a business that gets me that? They'll realize, oh, I don't need $1 billion business. Oh, I don't need to do 400 million revenue. To live the life I want, I just need to make 100,000 a year or 250,000 a year. So how do I build a business that gets me that? Instead of just having the mimetic desires of thinking what everyone else wants, I'm going to go get, this is someone else's wants. It goes back to social media, it goes back to comparison. You take the wants based off the person you're following. They want to do this, so I think I should want to do this. They want a Rolex, so I think I should want a Rolex. They want a Lamborghini, I think I should want a Lamborghini. They fly private, I should want to fly private. Versus if they just step back and be like, life I want, perfect life, what does that look like? Cool. Now let's build a business that supports that. And then they start realizing that doesn't matter. Client fires you, doesn't matter. Still living your life. New client comes. What should I pitch? You know what you need to pitch. You know what you should say yes to. You know what you should say no to because it's all planned out. And what are you going to have to do to earn that big amount? Everyone's like, I want to close the $400,000 deal. Do you? You don't know the bureaucracy that goes through a lot of those big deals. You don't know the time. The more money, actually, that's not really true because I think the less money they pay you, the bigger headaches. But there's still more work that has to go into it. So again, you're smart. You start to realize what you want. And if it doesn't work out, cool. It's just not meant on that journey. It's just going to lead to something else.
What is your biggest value add, your biggest thing that people should actually execute on?
I feel because I just said how important it was that this changed my entire life is the visualization, is that every morning reading what your life looks like. What does your bio say? Imagine giving yourself a eulogy, almost. What would people say about you? What do you want your legacy to be? What does your day look like? If you had to design the most perfect day and go through it with crystal clarity, like you wake up, it's 4:27, you look over, you see your spouse sleeping, you get up, you're tired but grateful for the day, like you go out, you go work out, like you could be specific and walk through every little step of the way, what you're wearing, how you're feeling, design that, and then stick to reading that out every single day. You start seeing how like something happens. It's a really weird magical thing. That may not happen the first time, but then you start like acting like that person. And it's almost like you start seeking advice from that person. Man, what would Jason 10 years from now say to do? What's he like? How would he analyze this deal? How would he analyze this? What would he say to do? And you get like that, almost like that belief of everything's going to happen anyways. Journaling has been a really cool thing for me. I have a lot of thoughts, but I didn't have a good way to synthesize it and put it out there. You start looking back at your journals from 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It's funny the things that we were like so worried about. And then you go back at it and be like, oh, man, this all worked out. Like, funny. You said it was going to work out and here's what happened. And it's only going to get better, right? You're going to be like, man, we just pitched this crazy big deal. And in 3 years from now, you're going to be like, that was a crazy big deal. That's what I thought a big deal was. Like, man, I'm so off. But in the moment, it's fun. And I think it's great to look back to from a perspective side of things. So when you're down, you look back at like where you were like 6 months ago, what you were complaining about, and you're like, man, perspective.
Where did you learn or find those questions or learn how to ask yourself them? And what are some daily examples that you consistently ask yourself to keep yourself on track?
The second one's a really good question. I'll answer the first one. Just practice. Right. I have a podcast, so I get to interview people. But if you go listen to the first episode of the podcast, I don't think you'd be giving me that compliment. I think you'd be like, man, dude, this is awful. I think you just get better and you start to realize you treat it almost the same way you would like a sales call. You start asking questions and you start developing a pattern, right? You start to know where things connect for people and where they don't. Most of us are all the same, and we just have a different story maybe to tell. Human psychology is the same, so you start figuring it out. And how do I press on that point a little bit faster? How do I get to this a little bit faster? How do I not let this person ramble on? How do I just get to the things I need to know right out of the gate? I'm also a no BS person, right? So I don't like to sugarcoat. I don't like to make the whole small talk and ramble and like whole introductory. Just here's a question. Let's just get straight to it. And every sales call that I've ever been on was the same way. I'd be like, look, if I could help you, let's eliminate the whole sales pressure from this conversation. If I could help you, let's do it. If I can't, I'll say so. When people get on a sales call or they get on an interview, they think it's one way. Logan wants to be a client of mine. I'm going to see if he's a good fit to be a client of mine. But at the same time, I need to be a good fit for you too. So you're coming on that call saying, am I a good fit to you? And I'm coming on the call seeing if you're a good fit for me. At some point, we have to reconcile that difference because it's a different conversation. So if I could right out of the gate be like, look, at the end of this conversation, I'm going to make you an offer. So don't be surprised, but I'll only make it if I think I could help you. If we could understand that and agree with that now, and you just say, cool, we could get on. It doesn't have to be a pressure sales call. Let's just have a conversation. And we could go on that way. So I think practice is the answer. And questions I ask myself every single day. I don't really have many, I journal a lot. So the questions I ask myself are more just how am I feeling in certain areas of my life, out of 10. But I don't really ask myself many questions. One question that I've tried to ask myself, if today was the most perfect day in the world, what would it look like? And then I just try to do it. But that's easier said than done. But honestly, it's just practice. People who do podcasts, they ask me all the time, hey, how'd you get started? How'd you get these people on? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? I did a bunch of really bad episodes. And then something happens, you tend to get a little bit better.
So what is one piece of advice that when you got it, it really changed the game for you?
Quantum. If you go study quantum physics and understand the way the world and universe works, it's going to sound really woo-woo. And I was very anti-woo-woo for a long time, up until maybe around a year and a half ago. And then I started getting really going down the rabbit hole. That's been a game changer. I wish I knew this a long time ago, that you design the life you want first, and then we build it. And everything that you've gotten in your life, at some point, you designed it. And everyone's had that feeling of, man, I did this. And it's crazy because a year ago, I was saying I was going to do this. But yeah, you created it and you did it. But now can we be deliberate in our action? Can we visualize where we want our business and our life to be in 10 years and see that crystal clear, and then work towards it, and then avoid all the noise and work towards that? I think designing and knowing exactly what I want and visualizations and all that, I think that's been absolute game changer.